us are here, so we can go ahead and get started. I'll start by reading the attending and viewing the meeting. Citizens can attend the meeting in person in meeting room C, first floor of the Rochester Public Library building, or view a live stream of the meeting on the library's YouTube channel. A recording of the meeting will be available after the meeting on the city's website. At this time, I don't know if we have anybody from the public here for public comment. Doesn't look like it, so we'll get started. So the meeting of the Rochester Public Library Board on February 15th is now called to order. And go through roll call. Melissa.
Melissa Payne.
Thanks. Angela. Thanks. Here. Teresa.
Here.
Thanks. Steve.
Steve here.
Chloe.
Chloe here.
Adam here.
Karen here.
All right. Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to? Oh, excuse me. Looks like we're all here and get started. So approval of the agenda. Hopefully everybody had a chance to approve the agenda ahead of time. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I would move we approve the agenda.
Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Thanks, Teresa. So a vote to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any dissent? No? Okay. Agenda approved. So now we can go on to the consensus agenda. Any objections to the consensus agenda today? No? If not, I guess I would move to have the consensus agenda adopted. Do I have a formal motion to approve?
So moved.
Nick, second.
I'll second.
Melissa, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, consensus agenda approved. So moving quite quickly. Getting to president's business here. First item president's business tonight is the committee assignments.
Yes.
I don't know, should I take that one? I can take that. So I think everybody got a fresh copy of the committee.
No, those if you want to pass those around.
Did everybody get one?
Oh, you did get them. Okay.
I was spending my,
Very efficient.
my free time.
I was paying attention.
No, it's fine. So I guess any questions on the committee assignments as outlined? Maybe 4 questions or just to outline it. Karen and I went through them and just made recommendations where we thought would be best fit, and then really just trying to model for those committees that need at least 3 members, and knowing that we have 1 or 2 members that will be rotating off at some point in the future, just trying to identify where we would put any new members.
Great. And I know we already have a finance committee on the books, meeting on the books. So, and it is an ad hoc meeting. So because it is just a one-off of really kind of approving potential decision packs and adjustments, we are able to do it through Teams. Yay.
Oh,
So I know.
If there's any questions from anybody moving forward on potential chair responsibilities of each of the committees, I'd be happy to talk individually too. I think I've been on each of these committees over the last couple of years in my time. Maybe there's more of an update for the end, but the biggest thing is just a future meeting regarding Karen's annual appraisal moving forward. Well, if no questions, we can go on to the next item. And I don't see Brenda from the foundation. Is there another representative from the foundation? Right. Karen, would you have any updates from the foundation perspective?
So Lisbon Wine was really successful. Thanks for those who did attend. It was a really fantastic event. It was the first year in its new format, just WIT. I haven't gotten final numbers, but it was the highest number of sponsors that they've had, so that was fantastic. And overall, it was a really great time. If folks that did attend fill out surveys, they are getting feedback for the event to make it even better for next year. So that is the only update that they had. Everything was WIT for the last couple of months.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very well done. It was a really good event.
Next item, we would have the Friends report. Val?
I'm Val Kalashevsky, president of the Friends, but I would like to have Sandy George give a short presentation on the bookstore, the Friends bookstore. So, Sandy?
You know where you want me, is this okay?
There is perfect.
I am Sandy George. I'm a member of the Friends Bookstore Management Team, along with Dee Vodel and Bessie Koppel, Diane Edwards, and Mark Ward. And just, if you haven't been following what's happened with the bookstore since COVID, we were closed for 18 months, and then we reopened in October of 2021, so about 2.5 months in 2021. And then starting slowly opened up the bookstore a little bit more. We started out with just 2 days a week. That's the number of volunteers we could get. In January of 2022, we were able to be open 4 days a week. We moved it up in March to 5 days a week. We're now open 6 days a week, not all day, but we were 7 days a week before COVID. So we're getting back there. We reached, during COVID, our longtime manager, Pat Stevenson, decided that, well, she's still with us. She's doing a lot of work for us upstairs with our online sales and pricing, but she was ready to hand off the daily management of the bookstore. So a group of us got together and decided we needed a team to replace one person. So that's how the team aspect got going. And that started, like I said, in October of 2021. We reached out to our core volunteers. We got enough back to slowly open the bookstore. We now have about 45 to 50 active volunteers working in the Friends Bookstore. Some people work 1 day a month, some work 4 or 5 days a month, like weekly. And we couldn't do it without them. We couldn't do it without the whole process of what happens to a book when it gets donated. If you've ever walked through our garage and seen the piles of donated books, one book goes through multiple stations before it gets priced and in the store. And it takes a lot of people, and we're very thankful we have those volunteers. But I'm here to report on what we sold in the store in 2022. So we sell donated books, CDs, DVDs, audiobooks, greeting cards, calendars, jigsaw puzzles, which are very popular, items that have been culled from the library, get repriced and sold in the store. And some of the books that get donated go directly to the library, and Val may talk a little bit more about that. But of the ones that we sold in the store during last year, we have a lot of books that come through, and we have to move them quickly sometimes. So we've had 7 different pop-up sales or lobby sales. We've had 2 big store half price or buy one, get one free. And when all is said and done, we looked at our budget and paid off our supply bills, and we were able to write a check for the library for 2022 for $65,000. And that's through the bookstore. The Friends gets a lot more books up, or a lot more things otherwise, but we're very proud, really proud, because we didn't know how things were going to go. So that's how we did. And if anybody that's looking for a wonderful volunteer opportunity, we can use more people in the bookstore. And if you know somebody who wants to donate some more books, we can always use more things too. So that's my part, and I'm actually on duty in the store right now. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions specific about the store we can help you with before I go back and help sell my books.
Have you put a big copy of a picture of the big check out on the social media?
It's been on Facebook. I had a phone call from KTTC, and he just wanted information. He didn't say anything about coming for cameras or anything, and I gave him the basic information, and I don't know what he's going to do with that. So I will let you know as soon as I know.
And there is a big sign with a presentation of the check that goes in the store, and that is in the process of being updated, and I imagine it will be shared in the newsletter. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sandy.
okay. But thank you, and I'm going back to my job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
And then for the rest of the Friends report, I'll stand up because I hate having to talk to people's backs, but we had our annual meeting the end of January, and we elected new board members. We revised our bylaws, and Kim Edson was our speaker talking about challenged books, book bans in the news, as well as how it's handled here at the library. And the summary information we covered, we estimate we get about 2,500 books per week donated to the library. And of those 2,500 books, the first thing we do is evaluate whether or not they look good enough that potentially they could be added to the library collection. And the library added 4,300 books directly to their collection of donated books that they did not have to buy. And if they would have had to buy them, it would have been almost $100,000. Another 2,700 books were kept by the library to hand out to people who are stocking their mini libraries, valued at another $40,000. Once we give the library dibs on the books, we try to sell them. And between online sales and our auditorium sales, we made $79,000 last year. And then we have the $65,000 from the bookstore. So we estimate out of all those books that come through, they made a value for the library of $284,000 in 1 year. And we're still getting back in the full flow of things since COVID. So we just had our first auditorium sale of 2023 this past weekend, and we made $7,700 in 3 days and 2 hours of sales. And that is our second highest amount for a Winterfest sale ever. We were like $500 short of breaking the record for Winterfest, so we were so close. And that's all my report. Any questions for Friends?
Have the updated library hours played any impact on this most recent sale? And I mean, was the sale available over the weekend where normally it wouldn't have been on a?
We had pretty much the same exact hours at the Winterfest sale that we've ever had. Historically, our Sunday hours in the auditorium sales have only been in the afternoon, because historically that's when the library was only open, was in the afternoon. Now, since COVID, when they're open at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, we kept our 1 o'clock, 1 to 4 afternoon hours. It's a matter of getting volunteers to be staffing. So the hours that were open hasn't changed. I think what's changed in driving when I come through and say, yeah, we set a new record in our auditorium sales, is we're doing a lot better job in publicity. We're out on Rochester Local, which used to be Rochester Moms. And Jeremiah has done a tremendous amount of work in helping us to get a regular email distribution sent out. People can sign up to say, I'm interested in hearing updates on when you have sales. And that goes out to over 800 people. And very few have unsubscribed, and over half of them, within 24 hours, over half of them have opened the email. And so this is an email distribution list that's specifically for people interested in getting notified of sales for Friends, either the bookstore or auditorium sale. So we're starting to promote that more as well. Any other questions?
I'm trying to decide how to ask my question. Basically, what are the criteria that take a book and put it into the library's collection instead of funneling it towards the bookstore, for instance?
So when we're going through the pile in the garage, we look at a book, and the library has given us criteria, but in trying to train new sorters, I've filtered it down to saying, if this book looks like somebody just bought it at Barnes & Noble, let's put it on the cart. And it's amazing how many books we get through that look like they just got bought at Barnes & Noble. And our take on it is I'd rather give them more books to consider and then only keep 3 or 4 than to give them, 3 or 4 in a month. Because what happens is if they don't keep it, it gets routed to our online reviewers. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
I will throw in there, not only is the, obviously the sales is good for folks to come and shop, but it really did affect our numbers last week. We had a really busy traffic. So it's bringing folks, I think, some folks may have already been coming, but I do contend that some folks were coming because they wanted to check out the sale and are coming back into the library. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Selco report, and I don't believe we have a Selco report for this afternoon, but future meetings we'll have a new Selco representative, Teresa. So Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Youth report, Chloe. Any items today?
Yeah. So I can't remember. It's been a while since I've been to a meeting, but there has been some update with. I think now the name is the Rochester Olmsted Council. So it's quite similar to the last one, but a little bit different. And currently we're in the building stages, so we're just trying to kind of figure out what the group's mission is going to be. And I think I don't know if we've quite done it yet, but we were discussing creating different committees, just like how we had on the old youth council, or youth commission. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But as of now, there is a youth council that is, it's similar to what we had with the youth commission. So yeah, we'll see.
I know in the past we had a few youth representatives on the board, are likely just to remain with
yeah, I think they're still trying to figure out what the plan is with because obviously there were youth representatives for all the city and county boards, but I think they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with that. So as of now, I'll remain on here, but we'll see what happens.
Great. Yeah. Thanks. All right. I guess moving to new business, which we have none listed on the agenda, so I'll skip right over and go to old business and defer to you, Karen, on the review of the council meeting from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone that did come to the meeting on January 30th, the City Council. And if you haven't gotten a chance to, I would encourage you to view the recording of the meeting. I did bring in the tour accompaniment brochure, which our team did a really great job of putting that information together and then putting it in a nice, as concise as you can be, of all of the problems in a pretty document. So really, and obviously there's not if we could come up with a fix, we would have a fix and it would just happen. But looking for some kind of direction and some kind of next steps of where we should be at as a leadership team, what we should be focusing our energies on. I know you are scheduled to have a meeting, or may have already had a meeting.
Trying to schedule a meeting with, yeah. So
one of the outcomes was the City Council President, Brooke Carlson, did reach out to Adam. So that is one of the outcomes and takeaways, but really just provide an opportunity for any kind of discussion and feedback at that meeting. You want to highlight?
I'd love to hear anybody that was able to attend, any feedback that you had and questions asked by the council or anything in the tour that popped up.
I was there, but it was kind of overwhelming because it had been just my second ever meeting here. So I guess for me, just still trying to understand is the council on board with because I felt like there was some disconnect, they were well, 125 has space and then there's all these other open spaces, and so I just wasn't sure. Maybe that was the end of the meeting, was that there was no formal consensus. So that was just But I thought it was really helpful to go through the library and see what people do, where the shortages are, how people are managing with what they have, but also just kind of the creativity and what people are willing to do to make things better. That was nice.
Yeah, I think some of what we came away with was the need to get more practical answers, well, more practical questions and the answers to those questions. One of which, of course, would be, I don't know if solved, but flushed out through a report, a study of what exactly can we do. One would be an expansion, of course, of this library. The idea had been brought up of another book truck. I think someone else had brought up the idea of a kind of a branch drop-off place where you just go and get your book or drop your book off. But the thing we're really dealing with and will always deal with is this library that we're sitting in. This will always be the spot of our efforts. Getting a book truck is great. And if we could get a book truck and it would cover areas that aren't being covered and it would increase our circulation, that's fine. But we always come back to this experience that that patrons have when they come into this library. I mean, that's the focal point of everything. Whether it's more space, whether it's more programs, it always comes back to here, to this building that we're sitting in, which is very old. And I mean, it's built on a plan that was done in, 1988? Okay, the Berlin Wall was still up then. It was. And ultimately, it was built in 95. I don't know how much modifications there were of that building, but, and we've got how many meeting spaces that two or more people can meet in? The limit is 2?
Yes, so we do have 3 study rooms, and the limit is 2 people in those study rooms.
And we get demand for much more than that, don't we?
Yeah, the group, I love the example that our teammates have shared about, I have a group of 3, where do I meet? And folks are always welcome to meet in the open spaces, but yeah.
And there's the noise and all that. Yeah, so we have talked about the possibility of a study, although that, of course, is expensive. Mm-hmm. And that would be one of the things that you would be talking to her about.
Yeah, I was very hopeful that I had the opportunity to meet with Brooke Carlson before this meeting, and we just haven't been able to, and she's not available for the rest of the month. So I'm really hoping that we can get a meeting before the next board meeting and come back at least with some feedback on perhaps what the tenor of the rest of the council is, what additional questions did they have. I don't know if you've had the opportunity as well to meet with Brooke and get any additional.
So I was able to meet with both Council President Carlson and Mayor Norton just about large picture overall, challenges that that we're facing ahead as we head into this budget cycle, knowing that these are really immediate needs, and we're looking at long-term sustainability of space needs for the library that wouldn't necessarily be fixed in an immediate budget. And I did reiterate again our lack of space and meeting spaces being one of those challenges, but also talking about programmatically some of the things that you'll see later in the action plan that would be part of the next budget cycle. So it was very limited in a very short conversation. They did reiterate that there are a lot of places in the community that they're aware of and for folks to meet. And so, I think we still hear that, across the desk that folks are looking for places. And so.
But if it has something to do with books or some library-ish thing, I mean, it kind of has to be here, right? I mean, you can't get a bunch of books and bring them to 125 Live, and it's just not the same thing.
I left the meeting thinking, would it be great if we could have some consensus as the board of perhaps a recommendation to endorse, that we really want a plan, and we would say that we would endorse that Karen move forward and ask for a larger plan of city council, or at least start going through the steps of the bureaucracy of the government to plan for that. But I don't know if we're necessarily there timing wise based on city budget cycles and things, if now is the right time to do that or not.
Right. I mean, we submit all of our requests by the end of March.
So how would that fit into what we're talking about right now?
Well,
We're running out of time.
we're running out of time. Yeah.
Planning committee a year to work on it.
Mhm.
What was that?
He gives the planning committee a year to work on it till next March, right?
And the city does operate in a 2-year budget cycle, so it's 2 years from
good.
March.
And if we wanted to aim towards a study, when would that have to solidify, as it were, in terms of the money would have to come from your budget, right?
So, that is a good question. I know when the parks did their complete, very large, expensive study in 2015 for their master plan, it was a city-funded, not separately funded by there was additional money that was set aside by city council for that study.
So they could have the resources. They made that decision.
And can you guys clarify for me what is the scope of what you're thinking about as far as a study to be done?
And I don't think we have the scope of what that study should include, and that, we do have the option of that could be a planning committee task to come forward with some recommendations of what that scope should include.
Because are we thinking, is this primarily facilities? Right? Because we're going to use it to drive a building request, right?
That's where the conversation.
Yeah, that's really where the conversation, the board has said over the last few years that there hasn't been an identified solution to the space issues, that the two things that have been agreed upon as a board is that we are facing space issues and that we're committed to being downtown. But the board really, beyond that, has not said this is the identified path moving forward. So,
Well, I know when I spoke with the mayor before I was appointed to the board, she's definitely, at least at the time, had the view that she wanted to use a satellite approach and potentially collaborate with other entities. So, and we have not done like a space utilization study, correct, recently?
not a space utilization, no. We have a building program that we did, but again, that was limited to a building program.
I think one thing that the study might show is that maybe it might show that we would be better served by having a branch in the Northwest or something, a branch that could also respond to community programs, needs, art, whatever it is that a community is drawn towards within that branch. Or the study may decide that we simply need another story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Angela.
Karen, I have one question. You mentioned the city council mentioned that there are several available spaces in the city that is available for the community to use. Because based on my personal experience, I have reached out to several community spaces, but half of them refer me back to the library. That's what people think. And then I think there's a gap between what city councilors are thinking that the space are available. However, the truth is that people will come back to library to ask for the space. And then even the other communities or even other organizations in the community are also thinking they should reach out to library. So here's the gap. I'm thinking that how we can help with connecting those gaps. One thing that list all the city councilors mentioned places. Let's do a collaboration task together. People will reach out to them, and then they, based on my own experience, they will say, go to library. Oh, sorry, it's not free. Oh, we cannot accommodate for your specific ethnic group purpose. So that's all the reasons people get refused or get declined. I think this is very important because we need the audience to support that. We need the space for the library so that we can support the community. I think this is like the basic thing. If they are thinking there are available spaces, but the truth and reality is people cannot access to the space. That's a problem, right? We are talking not only for the library itself, we are talking for the people we want to represent for. So I think this is something we can come up with. And then at least at the beginning point, the library can provide a service link or something like that to mention all the places the city council have mentioned, let the people to try it. And then if they get declined, then we can approve to the city councilor. You see, the space are not available for people to use. I don't know, this is just
well, that's why the space is a front and center issue.
Yes.
Here. The idea of another bookmobile that was brought up is great, but it's not going to solve our problem here.
And another thing, I think we should not place the library as just a place for renting and returning books. This is not the purpose for our strategies as well. We want to connect, right? We want to be inclusive for everyone to access. Book can be a mediator to be part of that, but the space is still important for us to organize our events, to connect with others. Yeah.
Teresa?
I was just going to mention, and I'm sure that this gets all thought about when you start doing planning, but for the city plan and where the city's going to be 30 years from now. So let's assume the building's got to last us 30 years. Where's the city going to be in 30 years? And what's the population going to look like? Where's it growing? And then comparing that to cities that are that size right now to identify, well, how are they addressing their community right now? And then we build a plan that reaches in that direction.
Right. If we did the study, I would assume that
Right.
would be part of it.
Right.
And it would compare us with others.
Would think, yeah.
Yeah, I left the city council meeting sort of feeling like immediately we got to, let's start fixing it now. And there's people throwing out, well, parking's an issue, so let's validate parking for people. Or we have 125 live, let's offer that as a solution. And it was very quickly going there.
It's not gonna.
That's the Band-Aid approach.
Yeah.
We need surgery, neurosurgery.
So knowing that the budget packets are due essentially a month from now, end of next month, I have yet to meet with Ms. Carlson, but hopefully you can do that soon. Is the board comfortable waiting until the next meeting to really maybe flesh this out, give the planning committee some time to meet, talk through too if there's any other ideas in that new committee on whether we would propose or endorse a recommendation to plan? Are there other thoughts?
If you don't start, all you're going to do is talk about it. So the key is, and I'm sorry, I don't, if you've shown us the building plan, and you probably have, it's not showing up in my mind right now. But kind of what's the scope of that we need to look at, and then, what are the next things we need as far as, both a programming document for the physical space, but also just that space utilization. And those are kind of the next things we need to figure out, okay, what has to happen. Those are not necessarily particularly expensive processes, particularly for this size of an organization. It's not like you have 14 schools you're trying to do or something like that, right? So it's not necessarily that expensive, or would have to be. Does the city have a architect on staff, or is it all outside?
Well, we have in the past, there've been a lot of kind of reactive responses to this problem. In the last, maybe it was the last one, there is a proposed plan that has 2 stories on it. When was that? Was that 2016 or?
That was the 2015-16.
Okay, so, but it's there. It's just a proposal and an idea of what we would do with that space, but that's as far as it ever went, right?
Yeah.
It's like a little model that a study would be more concrete.
Yeah, I think my initial thinking too with the study was based on the feedback of Mayor Norton and others saying, well, why can't you have a spot in Northwest and this or that? The initial study in 2015, 2016 didn't really touch on the city's larger plan.
Right.
Scope. Willing to spend the extra money, because obviously as soon as you add another location, you double some just inherent, infrastructure and administrative costs.
Well, there would be a tax levy, ultimately, I assume, temporary to reach a certain level.
And that has been, and that was even noted in the conversation at the meeting of the potential downside to any branch and satellite is that ongoing cost, and that is long been part of the conversation or the cons of that fix. Or
And has anybody done the math on that?
We've a couple of times what it would take to operate, and yeah,
And then there's inflation.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. So maybe as you talk to her, you could communicate with us, and we could maybe, we could have an ad hoc meeting, couldn't we? Even if we met by Bravo, or once you've met with her and we have something more to talk about.
Yeah, I would propose that we do that for the next meeting in March.
And the goal would be to have something by the next meeting.
Yeah. And if no one is, or if any of you haven't seen the original proposals in 2015, 2016, what that looked like, maybe give some more time too to see that again, get kind of comfortable with what we proposed in the past.
Karen has the full,
you have a nice
I went through the whole thing.
400 plus page document, which we have a link on our website that I will send out.
Yeah.
All of those documents are in there.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Totally.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody for the discussion.
Yeah.
Next item, action plan, is that related, unrelated?
So action plan, just wanted to get any feedback on the 2023 action plan, answer any questions. It was included in the board packet. Sorry, it's super tiny. These are the things that we have focused on for this next year. Some of these are some carryovers from things that were happening last year, obviously. The book box will launch this year, hopefully in the next couple of months. We'll be looking at different ways to expand early literacy skills and overall literacy skills, including, studying Rochester Reading Champions so that we can add capacity to that program, adding a sprinter outreach van. And some of the other things are ongoing things that we do, like offering programs, but that should be really ramping up this year. Getting back to full-time people will impact what we're able to do in that space. Launching the community ID program, which has been a longer process than we expected, but hopefully that will be something that will get launched this year. Also looking at, again, using better data. So we are going through our Blue Cloud analytics. A lot of us have been trained on that. We're working with our consultant, though, to get a better report that will help feed the state report, which is an annual requirement that takes a lot of Perna's time, a lot of teammate time to build that report. And so we're hoping that Blue Cloud Analytics can help us with that, but also looking at other ways that we can use that to inform our decisions. Looking at really getting back to full staff and seeing how that plays out for our services and programs that we're offering, evaluating our hotspot and our Chromebook programs that we have, and making some recommendations for the future of those programs. And also focusing on our employee engagement. We did participate in a citywide staff engagement survey and got some great feedback and insight from that. And so we have created an action plan to improve communication and also engagement with our employees. So those are some of the highlights of the things that we have planned this year. That's just the everyday, making all of the things run and circulating 2 million or so items. Any questions about the action plan? Anything that stuck out? of course, be providing updates throughout the year. So this isn't your last chance to ask questions.
Thank you. And we're on to informational items.
Yeah, so I just wanted to remind everyone that the Charter Commission meeting should be added to your calendar. If you did not get an invite, please let me know. That will be on March 14th. It would be great to have board representation there. Again, the proposal is to change the charter, which, and the board's position has been to, that changing the structure, the two proposed changes would significantly change the structure of this governing board. The first proposed change is to have me report directly to the city administrator and not to you, the library board. And the other proposed change would be to have city council appoint library board members, which is also very significant and doesn't happen for any other boards. And so that meeting is coming up again, March 14th. That will be the Charter Commission. I'm not sure if they will be looking to make recommendations on both of those proposals or not at that meeting. At the last Charter Commission meeting, they were interested in getting some information from the city administrator herself. And the Charter Commission has changed. There will be new members on the Charter Commission. So not sure what to expect, but should they propose moving forward with those changes, they would then go to the city council. And it would take a unanimous city council vote to approve any of those changes.
How many members are on the city council?
7.
So have you identified your abstention yet?
So as a board, we there is a letter that was shared out, yes, speaking to the significant change of having me report to the city administrator versus you really removes, in my mind, really removes the governor. And I think the board has shared in that perspective that it does really change the board from a governing to an advisory. The proposed language includes, this is still an advisory board, or this is still a governing board, but the change is very, very significant. So,
Who's proposing this?
So this was brought forward by a city council member, Sean Palmer.
Okay.
So, but if I'm understanding correctly, only one city council member has to vote against it to derail it.
Correct.
So.
So that is coming up, and if you don't have the meeting, then please let me know.
Stop having those things on Tuesdays.
What was that?
You guys stop having those things.
That would be a charter commission change.
Knock me out of the box.
Later this month, I'll be attending the Library Legislative Day, the Minnesota Library Association Legislative Day. Really advocating for libraries in general and advocating for the stabilization of the RLBSS funding increase. It's the formula that's used for divvying out the state money to the regional library systems, and it's been a long-standing campaign to stabilize that funding and to change that formula. But the good news is it's included in the governor's budget proposal. So this may be a good year. My understanding is they will be actually voting on that. It sounds like the morning of Library Legislative Day, so it may end up being a good celebration.
It's a bad time. You want to get there ahead of time to make sure they vote. Yeah, it should be an interesting legislative season since, everybody thinks this is their time though.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
Yeah. This is included in the city's overall legislative priorities for 2023. Kudos to Kim for advocating to get that in there, included in the priorities that the city has put out as their priorities for this year. And you'll also appreciate that the city has also endorsed the platforms that have been adopted by the League of Minnesota Cities, including one that would allow for virtual meeting attendance for boards and commissions. So this may be the year, but yeah, city is endorsing that. I thought everyone here would approve and support that as well.
That's great.
Something else to note, next month, your board agenda will look slightly different. We are working with the city clerk on switching over to a new system for agendas and minutes. And part of that is just kind of formalizing the agendas across the city organization. So if you attend a city council meeting or you attend a library board meeting, you're going to see some similarities. It makes for a better user experience. For example, one thing the city clerk asked, why do you have old business and new business, and does that need to continue? Can we switch that to discussions? So that would be probably one of the changes that
Changing discussions, you can't vote.
it was a discussion item that would be a vote.
Discussions don't get voted on. According to Roberts.
I will confer with the city clerk on what we need to.
It doesn't matter that you may or may not do something else, because usually as long as it's listed on the agenda. But according to Roberts, if it's a discussion item.
Okay.
The other thing is, if you're making changes, could you consider changing consensus to consent?
That was exactly.
Consensus actually, it bothers me since day one, and I haven't said anything yet.
It has bothered the city
It
clerk since day one.
Because consensus means it has to be 100%.
Sure.
Right? So it should be a consent agenda.
Yes, that is so. I'm glad you brought that one up because it has also bothered her as well. Yeah.
But lots of crap bothers me, so I try not to let it all out at once. Nothing going on.
And then the last thing I want to mention, we did have a meeting this week with Olmsted County and Family Service Rochester to talk a little bit about what they are kind of envisioning for this pilot 2.0, for lack of a better word. It again is going to be vastly different from what we've had over the last year and a half. The pilot that we've had, which was a 0.75 FTE social worker in the library, that pilot is ending March 31st. So after that, she just for those who didn't know, she was is a GPS social worker, which is somebody compared it to like a general practitioner instead of a specialist. So really knows a lot about all of the resources and can connect people appropriately. And it looks like they're leaning towards having a GPS worker for again a very limited time. It's not going to be 0.75 hours, but would be stationed in the library like once a week is what it's sounding like for a few hours. So that is on the horizon, and we'll keep you posted about what that's going to look
Have
like.
our patron state-facing staff gone through sort of like some sort of like family navigator training or things like that to know what the resources are? It's like the United Way used to do that training for free. Not here, but in the previous life. And so, so everybody knows at least where to go for housing or this or that, or if that makes sense.
So, I mean, we have some limited knowledge of the general resources are available, but we do not have that additional layer. Just being able to keep on top of, I need help printing this item out is can make a line at the reference desk oftentimes. So, no, our staff has.
Is that a resource that's available in Olmsted County or in this area?
Training to be
we called them family navigators, and that was like, basically so that when you come and you need help, often it's because you don't know where to go, right? And so they provided training for those, customer-focused people to say, okay, you need to go here, and then it would help them get that process dealt with.
I'm going to pull in Sarah.
That's pretty much what the social worker does. She describes herself as a resource connector to help people find that. And the county is going with a no wrong door approach to try to say, okay, you came to me, but I'm going to connect you to people who are going to
We're going to still take you, we're going to take the handshake, and once you've come to us, we're going to make sure you get to the right person.
Right.
And that's that same approach.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is way more complexity to the county social services network than we are able to provide. I'm still learning more every day.
We have two very nearby door ladies. There's Alex at the landing and Aaron at Salvation Army.
Okay. Well, because we use people who were not masterwork qualified social workers, right? We call them behavior interventionists or something like that. But basically, they had a bachelor's in social works and were cheaper. But then, and I think I told you this already, they were funded entirely through Medicare reimbursement. And so they were free. And so it's very doable, I think.
The navigator thing, it rings a bell. And I remember.
Yeah, you were there. We
Yeah.
kind of talked about it a little bit.
But I can't remember what it was.
Okay. And I think that might be able to, longer term solution than having to have a master's qualified social worker. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So part-time, remember? We were gonna go, we were creating we were gonna be like a point of access for people.
Right.
And we were gonna all use the same database, and we were gonna get that training, and everything fell apart, you know? I remember, it all fell apart.
I mean, you just need, it's like anything else. You just need somebody who's going to be sort of the godfather, the sponsor, somewhere within the county system who can make sure it happens. In the previous life, it was between the school superintendent and the United Way director, just make sure that all the organizations bought in.
Well, good to hear there's some positive steps, though, with keeping the social worker around a little bit longer.
Well, and I know like the Catholic diocese is moving their offices here. They might be willing to, Catholic Charities has a pretty big footprint too. So, I mean, sorry, I'm talking.
No, I mean, exploring options for getting people connected with resources that's not taking away from the day job of the things that need to happen across the desk. Absolutely conversations that we keep happening as a leadership team, because we recognize that there's value in exploring other options that aren't just having a social worker in the building. No. And I think that was all that I had.
Anything on the onboarding and committee meetings?
Yes, so I will be sending out more information and connecting with the chairs on how to best proceed with doing our committee meetings. If you haven't completed your onboarding, then I know we're working to get those scheduled, and those tend to be really far out and take a long time, but we'll be working through those. I know the mayor's office is also working on finding a replacement for Holly Masick's position, so that I would expect to be in place before the next board meeting, but we're continuing on that onboarding of new folks, and then also we'll still be having new folks come in. But look forward to more information about committees and committee meetings.
So when it says new member, like under planning committee, it would be one of those individuals?
That is not the person's name. That is that indication that is a new.
That person is yet to come.
Yes.
There's more placeholders. We remember that these are ones that need the placeholders, that these are committee members, and we don't get lose those. Thanks, Karen. Moving on, sharing strengths and question time. I sort of always lump those together, but anyone have any positive items to share or questions for the board or the rest of the administrative team?
I think I had my.
These are all answered. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Well, with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody, for the meeting.
Quick. Thank you.